Alright, let's make sure audio's working. Yep, audio's working good. Alright, so my name is Ryan Strong. This is my Milestone 5 video. This will be part 1 of 2. Part 2 will be a short video of just me running the app on my mobile device. So first we'll go over my milestones that I actually have set here. So first milestone was obstacles. That's something that I actually put off towards the very end because I felt it was going to take the most time, meaning I did all of the other stuff, the other A priority things first, because those only took me about a day to complete everything that I needed for them. Yeah, so we'll kind of go over this. So the obstacles, I'll show you those in game. Couple of changes that I made from a prior save that I was working with due to some performance issues I was running into on the mobile device. The main menu, previous milestone was to create the transition for the menus. This milestone was to create the actual main menu and the credit scene. So what I did was I created a main menu scene which has some basic elements to it now. Initially it had a video to it, but I'll talk about that a little bit more when I go in depth. And then the credits scene, did those as well. And then I did a tutorial which is going to end up being changed as well, but I will show you kind of what I worked on with it. And then we have the wall colliders here. I started to work on those, but that's something that I planned on doing in Milestone 6, so that was a B priority. And then same thing with the terrain, it was a B priority. I didn't start doing any of that at all yet. It's going to be done in Milestone 6. So for next week, Milestone 6, we'll be adding particles, game music, wall colliders, lighting, leaderboards, as well as the terrain, which isn't written in here. Alright, so let's go to Unity, and we will start off with the beginning area here. So when I initially started this for this week, one of the first things I did for the obstacles was actually adding some trees and stuff to the scene, which made it look really good. It functioned really well, but it ended up giving me some really bad issues with the game running on the mobile device. So I took them out until I can figure out how I wanted to tackle that. And I think I may have actually figured out what I was going to do with that. Really, I believe all that needs to be done is giving it a load time. So rather than starting and playing immediately when I start the game, instead letting it load for a little bit. So maybe I'll add some sort of splash screen that shows up that has a load indicator come up initially while that whole scene is kind of loading everything in. But before we get into this anymore, we'll start with the main menu here. So the main menu, what I did was initially, like I mentioned before, I had a video in here that I was running. Now the problem with the video, as I found out, is when you are putting this on Android, Android does not allow videos currently, at least with the Unity setup. So I tried to find a few workarounds. The best thing that I could possibly do with it was to try and run it in full screen mode, but it ended up not working, and I kept on getting a lot of compile errors in my actual on the build, which prevented it from actually building. So I had to take that out, and I currently put a generic image of the initial mine that the player's back is to when the game starts. Then I went in and I added these two different buttons. I didn't add them, I positioned them to a different spot because I wanted to make sure that they really fit well with the the picture there in the middle, and it kind of makes it easy for the player when they're holding the device. They can use one thumb to push the one and the other for the other if they want to. And then for the credits scene here, what I did was I added a animation to it. So I go over to my actual text here. I attached this animation just called credit scroll, and right now it fits with the current size of the scripting here. When I add more credits in here for different assets I may be using, or when I start to add particle effects and music and such, then I'll have to make it, it'll end up being a little bit longer, and I'll have to modify this scrolling. But what it does is it literally scrolls up like you see here, and works pretty nice. Gets all the information across. It's not too fast, but it's also not really slow. And when it gets to a certain point at the top, it's done. It doesn't actually scroll anymore, but it's off screen. So the player would at that point have to press the main menu button here, which will bring them back to this scene here in the game. So now we'll go to the main game scene, where I can discuss a few of the things that I did in there. Once it loads. Alright. So, some of the things that I did. I went in and I actually added this pause menu and made sure that it actually functions now properly. So you have the resume race, restart race, and quit race. When you resume race, all it is as if you push that pause button up in the corner again. Just another area that you can do it when you're playing. Restart race automatically reloads this level as if you had never touched it, which currently how it's set up is it will also show this tutorial that's in the background here as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then quit race brings you right back to the main menu. So if I zoom in a little bit more here, you can see this tutorial. This currently is set up to pop up automatically when the player goes into the game. It's just a basic instruction as opposed to a real tutorial. It tells them what to press to do what to get started in the game. The game automatically starts out paused, and they can't do anything until they press this continue button here. So like I mentioned earlier, I was messing around with adding trees and such to give this a little bit better view for the player, make it seem like there was more to it than this kind of bland green grassy looking terrain with some dirt roads on it. That's something I'm going to test out much more this week once I finish with some of the other minor tasks that I set for myself for this week. But all in all, it looked great and it ran smoothly on the PC here, but when I put it on the device, it made it to where the game ran super slow on the device. So what I did instead is I got rid of all those, and there are a few objects that I placed in the game. So you have this light here. It is a minor light source. There's a few things that I'm still working on with the lighting to get things to look good, but I don't want that. Okay, I added that to. I like the darker scene. I gave it more of a dusk type environment, and adding these lights kind of helps along the way when the player is kind of racing along the track. I only have the 4 there. Yeah, the 4 of them there. Just as it was a starting point, but my lighting, like I said, isn't till technically next week that I'll be working on it. So what I did other than that is I started to add more stuff to the game area for like obstacles and stuff. So I have a couple of these things that would normally be seen inside of like a actual a cave, like a mining cave or something. They have all the mesh colliders set up for them, so if the player does run into them, they'll either stop or they will wreck. Same thing for this one, but with this one, I put it on its side here to make it seem like maybe it was initially kind of up on the top of the mountain there and it had crashed down or something, or it could have been another location and it just kind of crashed down. I actually connected this minecart here. It's actually turned on in game now, but how it works is it's actually turned off when the game starts, and then when the player reaches a specific point over here, I have a collider. The player goes through the collider, that activates this, which makes it move forward, and kind of just something that the player might have to try and avoid, or it kind of maybe freak him out that, oh no, something's coming in my path. I added a bunch more rocks and such just to give a little bit more feel to the area. The biggest area I concentrated on for adding debris and stuff was right here. I added some more rock elements into the side of the little hill here and around this area with some broken up mine carts and such. And then I kind of put this this little pickaxe here, which is a little big. I'm going to size it down a little bit, but it's currently into this here, which is technically kind of a coal asset. I guess it's a lighter color coal, but yeah, so I have it jabbed in there just to give a little bit more feel that, okay, yeah, this was like a mining community. And then I have two more areas that I'm going to show that I did for just stuff in the way, and this is one of them. I put a bunch of mine carts and broken mine carts and railway and such in the player's path, but it's not really in the player's path, because with this jump here, as long as they're going a decent speed, and that could be a really slow speed, they're pretty much going to jump over it, clear it, and continue on, but they'll still see it. I'm going to add some particle effects to it later, maybe some smoke coming from the sides or something, because I don't want the player to really go back there, but I want it to look like something had happened there from the issues going on in this place. And then the last area that I was working on is kind of the last big bang for the player in the game, and it's this area right here. So I have this area set up. It's another mine shaft kind of area, and it looks like, you know, there was the earthquake happened and all this stuff collapsed on the inside of the tunnel, and other areas kind of destroying the area. There's a couple particle effects I added in here just so that I could see them and see how they actually looked. I actually hit them all. Alright, some of them. Let's see if it actually shows them. There we go. So it's more of a reminder for me right now that that's where I'm going to put some of the fire, and that's adding the fire into the game for me, so I know kind of the one that I want to use. So it's just a placeholder for now. But added those to it as well. A couple of bumpy areas for them to go through, and there's going to be another trigger event that happens. They'll go through a trigger and maybe an explosion will go off, and then they'll see some fires actually pop up in certain areas that they normally, since they wouldn't actually see this once they hit that trigger, this stuff will automatically be going on already in the game, and all they'll have to do is see the initial stuff go off kind of maybe over in this area, and then they come around and they'll see that, oh yeah, there's even more destruction going on. It's kind of the whole final big bang for them before they kind of go around to the finish. And the finish is another cave. I wanted it to be something that it'll, to the player, it may look like, oh wow, I finally found a way possibly out of here. This cave has not been destroyed. Maybe this is my way out. So they'll ride up to this. There's nothing currently in it. There's going to be a couple lights in it kind of going back, getting a little bit smaller, just to indicate to the player that, okay, maybe that's where I need to go. But there's a trigger for the end, over in this area. Let me see where I got that on here so I can... Alright, I'll call it endpoint. And it's right here. It's literally right before you get to the entrance. See? So they'll go into that and it'll automatically load in for them the next scene so that they can go to the credit scene. So I'll do a quick run through of this for you. So like I said, here, oh wait, I gotta stop this because I have it set to touch control, and I can't use touch control when I am on the computer. So here we go. Let's try that again. Alright, so again, there's more of instructions. It's actually going to go away. I'm going to use a different thing to actually do a tutorial that will allow the player to either do it or just get on and play the game. And starts them off here. Like I said, it looked a lot better when the trees were in there, and I'm going to figure out a way to get them back in there to make it actually look good. But I got these lights set up. I tried to knock down some of the detail on this because the game is pretty big as it is, and I want to make sure that players, or that most people can play it on their devices. So you go through, you can kind of see the lights. It works out pretty well. We'll go through, I'll show you the initial trigger that I set up for the one minecart that'll go off. And there's one thing that I had spoken with my advisor about, and that was figuring out which button for the brake, whether it's this button here, the one that looks like a handbrake, or this one here is the better option, and getting rid of the other. And let me explain that in a minute. Alright, so we're about to go through the trigger, and you see the minecart start to go, and then continue on, and it just goes to the end. Falls off the edge. Now, if the player's going fast enough, they might be going fast enough to just come kind of pass it and be like, oh, okay, that didn't mess with me. Or they might kind of collide with it. You never know. Just something that I'll be testing out a little bit. And then, like I said, you come over here, you go off this jump, and you see all that cool stuff, that cool debris down there. There's going to be a little bit, some pretty cool particle effects to go along with it once I get that going. In the meantime, though, let's get to the next point, and that's that nice area with all the really cool broken up stuff. And I wrecked there a lot, and I like that being a wreck point because kind of teach players to possibly have to slow down or adjust when they're going through. And since this isn't necessarily time-based, it's time-based in the fact that you want to get a quicker time as you go, but other than that, it's all event-based, based off of triggers, whether or not when you collide with a trigger. But so we'll come up to here, and like I said, there will be a trigger somewhere back, probably right around here, so they could see like an explosion going off over here or something. And then they come around and they see all this destruction here as well, and they should just go past it, but it's kind of a big area. There's going to be more particle effects going on, more fire, more smoke, kind of stuff in the air, and then they can continue on. And we'll get up to the finish. And we're almost there. So yeah, they'll finally see this here and be like, oh my goodness, I might be at the end. And then they'll, boom, credits. So, works out pretty well, and take them back to the main menu and be good to go. So, we'll go over briefly some of the scripts that I worked on. So, I had a couple things that I had to modify. For my credit scene, I was initially using the same game manager, which is this script here, that I use for the majority of the game. And the problem with that was my animation was not activating. It was not running because this game manager script was attached to it. And what this game manager script does is it automatically pauses the game when you start up, like that level that you started up. And that's not really cohesive to what I needed, so I created another one that's just, load main menu, and I attached it to a game manager object in the credits scene, and use that for the button for main menu, which allows it to load scene 0, which is the main menu scene. Then we have the object event here. This one is for that minecart, and I had played around with it quite a bit. As you can see, a couple of things commented out, but basically what I found was I gave it well, let's talk about this one first. So I have two scripts for it. I have one for the actual object, and I have one for the actual trigger. And basically what I was saying is, let me pull up, I want to make sure I show you everything for a checkpoints. Alright, in here, checkpoint 3. Now, this is that object. So you got the object event, right? Player goes through the object event script, which is this one right here. And what it's saying is it's going to find that game object of minecart, and then the minecart is going to equal objects with tag minecart. I called that minecart. I gave it a tag of minecart, which made it easier, especially if I wanted to use multiple in that area. And then on trigger enter of a collider PLA, then if PLA.tag equals player, myself, then do this. So then it's going to set minecart active to true, and then it's also going to destroy game object. Destroy game object is not for that minecart. It's actually destroying this checkpoint 1 trigger that I created. I did that because that's the only way I was able to get around the camera zooming in on the collider that is there, and that is what allows that minecart to actually start to move forward. Initially I was going to use this here, but I no longer actually need to use this, so it's kind of a waste of a script. I don't believe I did any other script writing with this one. Nope. So yeah, that's pretty much it for part 1. Part 2 I will be doing momentarily, and that'll just be of me utilizing my mobile device to play the game, so you can see that. Alright, and I will talk with you all again soon.